Good day, goeiedag, welcome, wam kili kili. My name is Dr. Bradley Greenosh, and I am the Legal Education and Student Coordinator at the Faculty of Law at Stellenbosch University. And in this presentation, we are going to be talking about what can I do with my law degree. This overview is going to be focusing on your future, what the thinking of a jurist entails, and then, obviously, career options. Now, usually, students or prospective students, when they come to Open Day, are very interested in the nuts and bolts of what's going on when they're actually at university. And if you want that information about the different programs, please watch the other presentations, and you will get all of that information there. And you can also consult the various online resources. But what I'm going to be talking about, and this is usually a live session, so we're going to have far more pictures in this recording, is what's next. What happens after you've actually done a law degree, and why you should do one in the first place. So hopefully we're going to answer all of those questions. All right, so first we're going to be looking, obviously, at your future. To sketch a little bit of a path here, you're going to come and join us at the Faculty of Law. You're going to choose the law program that you are going to take, and then you are going to graduate, and you're going to be incredibly proud, as you should be. Your parents and loved ones are also going to be incredibly proud. And you are then going to start wondering, okay, but is there a return on investment? What am I going to actually get from this choice that I've made? But it's not necessarily only about financial rewards. Many of you are here for these reasons, for wanting to speak for those who have no voice or have no agency, and you want to make a meaningful difference in your community or your society or your country or the world as a whole. And maybe some of you have very personal reasons in your own family situations for why you are here. But ultimately, what you are going to end up as is going to be this future jurist. Maybe you're going to be in the business world, or NGOs, a lawyer, an advocate, a winemaker, a mechanic. It doesn't really matter. But what are you going to get should you have chosen law? What does that actually entail? What is going to change you? And why should you be doing law? And in this regard, we really have to start with what it means to be thinking like a jurist. And we use the word jurist because it involves that of the law, but it's not limiting your future options by saying like a lawyer or like an advocate. We use the word jurist on purpose. Because one of the outcomes of studying law, if you have put in the effort and the necessary focus when you are a student, is that you are going to be fundamentally changing your way of thinking. Now, most of you, I am sure, are aware of artificial intelligence, ChatGPT and the like, and the change that is taking place across the world in terms of algorithmic processing of the law and its related industries. We assure you that we are well aware of this, which is why some of the core modules that you will be required to take are specific law and technology modules. However, remember that there are always people involved in facets of the law. So yes, certain spheres of the law are going to experience significant changes as a result of these algorithms, AI, deep science, deep learning, deep data and the like. But you are potentially going to enter into a field that is going to be changing rapidly over the next decade or so, or 2 decades, 3 decades. And so, what an exciting time to be involved in an industry where you could potentially play a hand in shaping where things go. But turning back to the possible advantages of studying law, if you think of some of the different degree programs at university, for instance, studying music, or to be a doctor, or engineers, or many others, many of these focus on the practicality of what is required for those professions. If you study a music degree, you're actually playing your instrument. If you do engineering, you're doing projects out there, building things. You are doing things that an engineer would do. Similarly, a doctor is consulting with patients as they make their way through their studies. They are working on dissecting bodies and the like. There is obviously an element of practicality involved, and such is the case with law. You will be exposed to the nationally renowned law clinic here at Stellenbosch University and the brilliant work they've been doing. You'll be exposed to what it means to engage with clients and engage in the day-to-day practice. So that practical experience will be part of your degree, but more importantly, it will be the focus on the theoretical science of the law. how to think like a jurist, how to find loopholes, how to argue, how to stand up and convey your thoughts in a structured and logical way. But importantly, what I want to explain is that many students, when they come into law, have this mental model in their mind. I think that's a parrot. I'm not sure, but I'm going to claim it as being a parrot. Now, these students think that in essence, all one does is just come and learn a lot of information and a lot of data from these dusty bookshelves, or increasingly through online resources. That you simply get all of that into your head and then regurgitate that, and then you are a lawyer. Now, I'm not going to pretend that there's not going to be a lot of memorization in certain parts of your modules, but it is in the process of listening to your lecturers explain things, of you doing the reading, of working out how to synthesize the essence of what is being said in a law case, and how to combine that with the information being given in your lectures. It is through all of those processes that you start acquiring the skills that are fundamentally going to change the way that you think and interact with the world around you. So the biggest benefit you can get studying as a law student is captured in this single word: change. You will fundamentally change the way that you think and engage with the world around you, and that is what is going to potentially set you apart from any other graduate in any other program. That is what makes it so exciting. If you choose to go that route, if you choose to be open to that experience and work hard for it, if you choose to be educated in what it means to think like a jurist. Right. So with those points being made, let us look at our different career options. I think most people associate studying law with lawyers or advocates appearing before the courts as litigators, where they actually argue in court. We have the Constitutional Court over there, the Supreme Court of Appeal, and yes, that certainly does happen. But the reality is sometimes far less attractive. The slide that you're seeing now, or we'll show you in a moment, is the inside of a court clerk room. I think it was the Somerset West or possibly Strand Magistrates Court. And each one of those files is a case that involves people. There's a story behind it. But suffice it to say that if we look again at that, there is a lot of paperwork involved with being an attorney or an advocate. And you will become incredibly comfortable with absorbing massive amounts of information and very quickly synthesize and distilling what is so important from those massive amounts of data. Again, a very valuable skill to be had. But of course, there's the flip side to this. There's the commercial side of things. Again, it doesn't necessarily depend on which specific law program you have studied. But yes, you can go and work in these large commercial law firms or at any number of companies. You can be an in-house advisor and the like. It really does depend on what you want to do with your opportunities. It would also be wrong not to point out that there is frequently a correlation between what you do as a background degree program and what could potentially become of you in terms of wealth. All of these logos that you see here, some of these companies are alumni of our own faculty. They have a background in law. The Business Insider article from 2020, it's been repeated in 2023 as it has been for the last several years, that statistic remains more or less the same. That dollar millionaires, almost 30% of them, have studied law. Now, this is not to suggest that by mere virtue of the fact that you do a law degree, you are going to make massive amounts of money. But what we are suggesting is, again, if you want to, if you educate yourself into seeing those opportunities, if you utilize the way that you think differently, you as a future law graduate are potentially going to see opportunities that others do not. And of course, again, it doesn't necessarily always have to be focused on these commercial viabilities. You also have opportunities here to make a difference within the broader community. Environmental work, the United Nations, all numbers of NGOs. Parliament is, of course, an option in terms of a future in politics. All of these different NGOs have made meaningful changes and differences in the context of our country. And as I've already alluded to the fact earlier, our law clinic is playing no small part in this as well. But what about postgraduate studies when you are finished with your various law degrees? Well, you have those options to then go and study further, as you can see. Overseas, we have increasing relationships with any number of international universities. some of the best universities in the world. And I cannot emphasize this enough. This is just a small sample of the partnerships that we have with continental Europe and Africa, and we are branching increasingly into America, it is hoped, in the very near future. Now, after that, what about international options? We are always asked whether or not you can go study overseas with a law degree, and the answer is most definitely yes. You can study further. It is not at all an impediment if you qualified in South Africa with a law degree, but it is going to depend on what the different jurisdictions have as requirements for people who have qualified elsewhere. It's just how it works, because while you have been taught to think like a jurist, you still need to become familiar with the individual law system and approaches that are applicable in those different countries. So does it disqualify you by virtue of the fact that you have studied and graduated with a law degree in South Africa? Absolutely not. You just need to find out what your requirements are, depending on where you want to go further. And we have countless examples of very successful alumni that are overseas and are practicing in different countries, ranging from Australia, continental Europe, the Americas, and the Far East. So it really isn't an impediment. It just depends on where you are interested in going and what you are wanting to do. Right. So, I want to end off with this remark by Jeremy Bentham, that the power of the jurist lies in the uncertainty of the law. We had a very prominent entrepreneur of ours that studied at Stellenbosch University at the law faculty that came back and was chatting with some of our mercantile law students. And one of those students asked him what was the single biggest skill, or what was he most appreciative of having acquired as a law student. And he said something remarkably similar. He said he learned to be comfortable with the uncertainty. In many other degree programs, there's this notion, given their field, that things are either black or white, blue or red, right or wrong. As a jurist, as a law student, you fast learn that this is not the case, that everything in our world is open to interpretation, and it depends on how you look at it, and it depends on which details are available, and it depends on how you utilize that information. There is uncertainty all over the place, but importantly, we as law students are comfortable with that fact. This is what separates you from so many others, along with what we have said earlier about how you think potentially as a jurist. That is what opens up all of those possibilities when you are finished studying as a law student, particularly at this very good faculty, Stellenbosch University's faculty. So with that being said, I just want to point you again for further information. You can go and look at those websites. marties.com/law is where you'll find the faculty's website. And of course, /calendar is where you'll find access to the various yearbooks and the different faculties. I want to thank you for spending time with me here today. I hope that you've been enthused about the possibilities should you choose to go in the direction of law. And if everything pans out the way that we hope it will, I look forward to seeing you someday on campus. Thank you very much. Inkosi, bye donkey, goodbye.